This week on the podcast, we are going to be talking how to push through a plateau, what to do if you feel like your results are stalling, and how to regain consistency when you have a setback or you have one of those tough weeks. Welcome back to the Nicola podcast. I feel as though this is the perfect time to have this conversation because it's like we're right into October now, and I'm speaking to a lot of women who are starting to feel the pressure just turn up a notch. You know, those big occasions, the back end of the year, where we thought we'd be by the 1st of December, like it's getting closer. But we're also in that stage of the year when big change in season, nights are drawing in, the winter food has started to kick in. And so, again, like the motivation for some is starting to wane. And I'm getting those questions. How do I keep my foot on the gas, Nick, without feeling as though I'm in diet mode? So I want to clear up this week a couple of actions versus expectations. Okay, I think that's a big one. I think social media, and I'm kind of going to go off script a little bit today. But I think social media has us map out these really high expectations. But then social norms, lifestyle, the food industry, dare I say, has us acting in a complete way of misalignment. So we've got, if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see I've got one hand in the air for these like really high expectations. And then I've got this, my other hand is like way below par. Like, so our expectations are super high. We see the dream body on Instagram. We see the mom of 3 running the 2 businesses, doing all of the things, looking fantastic. Like that's where we set our standards. But then our actions are right down here. And actually, because we're just trying to keep up. We are just trying to keep up with the chaos and the madness of the routine. And, you know, we're trying to, somewhere in amongst it all, fit in a bit of a gym session and, you know, say no to the piece of cake and maybe reduce the alcohol. And it's all a little bit blurred. So let's talk about getting to the crux of what it is that you really want, how to turn up the heat if it is big results that you want before the end of this year, and how to push through those plateaus. I'll start with my little unfiltered of the week, which it's really on par with today's topic of conversation, I've got to say, because in the past week, my eldest daughter just turned 8. Sob, which I did, an emotional week. And I know I've put this on Instagram, and there's a lot of mums message to say, I also feel the same. You know, it's just, I think, whenever there's a birthday or a big occasion, it's like, for me, it's just a realization of how quickly time is passing. Like that's it. It's just how quickly time, like just it's flashing before our eyes. And it's like every year you just all of a sudden notice these changes in what your kids are into, maybe what gifts they're asking for, maybe what friends they're inviting to the party, the type of party that they might want to have. It's just, yeah, it's a lot. But it's also been a week of absolute indulgence. And I am in that camp of us women who are starting to feel the winter nights kick in a little bit. And I've completely let myself go this last week, ladies. I've got to say, and I say this to all of my clients, we all have our own standards. We all have our version of letting ourselves go. My version of letting myself go is not like face planting a Domino's pizza and drinking 2 bottles of wine. I'm talking, you know, I overindulged with some cake and some goodies, and I want to add that in there because I think it's really important. I think that's a really important point to maybe ask and reflect on yourself, your version of events, your version of taking it easy, your version of taking your foot off the gas, your version of overindulging. Like, consider what that is, because it's always what is relatable to you and yourself. And so, yeah, I say I've let my standards drop a little over the last week, and I can feel it. I can feel it, and I can feel it in my clothes. I can feel it in my energy levels. And that's okay. That's okay from time to time. It's completely normal. It's also really healthy for my kids to see me mucking in and, you know, enjoying the big piece of birthday cake. And that's not to say that, you know, I do it every year, but it's also a good opportunity to maybe pass on how I would just get past that and just, okay, back in action. Because another thing that I see and I hear far too often is just women dwelling on the fact that the week wasn't perfect or that we let ourselves down, which there's no such thing, ladies. It's just about owning our decisions at all times, owning the decisions that we make and being happy with that. And whether or not those decisions might veer you off the beaten track slightly, that's okay. That's going to happen. Progress is not linear. Our results are not meant to come to us in a straight line. We've got to embrace the ebbs and the flows. If you are watching on YouTube, you'll see all the birthday cards in the background. It has been a week of absolute chaos. I'm adding party planner to my list of expertise because honestly, and any mums listening will know this. Why does it throw such a spanner in the works when you've got to organise a kid's birthday? I think it's like trying to organise everything when they're not around, so they don't suspect anything, so nothing is lying around. The amount of things as well that just arrive and they're not absolutely perfect, so then you've got to send them back and then you've got to reorder. And gifts galore, balloons galore. It's been a week. It's been a gorgeous, joyous, busy week. But I am ready. I'm ready to reset and get a bit of order back. But yeah, I think ultimately my unfiltered this week, I'm just normalising this as part of the process. But today we are going to unpack why we do tend to feel as though maybe we're going off course, maybe we're feeling a bit stagnant, maybe you feel as though you've hit a plateau, maybe you don't feel like you're getting anywhere, you're putting all of this effort in, you in your mind, at least you are checking all of the boxes, but still the scales aren't moving, the weight isn't shifting. Why is this happening and how to reframe it? First things first, let's kick off with a bit of real talk, ladies. Actions versus expectations. Like, we've got to be super clear on this. Said this before, this is not the podcast where I am going to sugarcoat and tell you what you want to hear. I'm going to be realistic about maybe what it takes if your expectations are high, the sacrifice that is going to take. Because in order to transform, in order to level up in any area of life, there's going to be something that has to be sacrificed along the way. Would that be like playing Jenga? Kind of, just like a bit of a weird analogy. But in order to get that one level higher, we have to think where can something be removed? Where can I make that sacrifice? I used this example with a client earlier in the week. She's got high expectations. She's got high standards, so she should. Ladies, by the way, I'm an advocate for us aiming high, because I think even when we aim high, we're still selling ourselves short. Anyway, so she's spoken me through these different scenarios of different weeks and the way the weekend tends to plan out versus the weekend. And so from my perspective, outside looking in, I was very much like, right, okay. So during the week, when you're in your own lane, you are on it. You're following through, taking the action with ease because it feels good. It's in alignment with your goals. But over a weekend, you're kind of playing catch up and making sure everybody else is happy. And you're kind of going along with the decisions and the actions and the behaviours of everybody else because that's what you've always done. That's where you're stuck. That is what is keeping you stuck. This relapse every weekend, essentially. And I said to her, you've got to be willing to take a look around and think, okay, these are my friends. It doesn't mean that we have to all have the same goals or even, share the same version of what success looks like. But for me, I don't want to go out drinking. I don't want to do the afternoon tea because that's just going to be cake galore. I would rather us go for a meal where I can, get an option that maybe aligns with my goals a little more. I need to be willing to put my own needs into the equation here because I'm looking around and I'm thinking, I don't want your outcome. And yet I am so willing to go along with your habits and behaviours of a weekend. And I want you to think about that. And it's a bit of a harsh one to say, maybe. But we've really got to think about it because, and it's the same with our partners or, whoever we spend time with. We've got to be willing to step back and go, okay, if I don't want your outcome, I've got to be willing to do things differently. And I've spoken about this before, a lot of the work that I do with my clients, it is about empowering you to think differently, to get off autopilot, to take a different route to the status quo, because ultimately that will always keep you trapped until the penny drops. So making sure the first sort of like action versus expectation this week is making sure that your actions are aligning with your goals. You know, you say you want to drop the weight, you say you want to drop the dress size, you say you want to feel your best self, you say you want this good energy. Are the actions that you are taking on a daily basis, those small, consistent actions and habits, are they lining up with what you say that you want? Or are you getting to the end of each week and you're kind of 60-40? Maybe sometimes you're 70-30. Maybe 70% of the time you're lined up, but for that other 30, you sort of missed the workout, skipped breakfast, and you know what, I went out and I drank way more than I intended to. Because if that's every week, yeah, the route to progress is going to be slower than you are expecting. So it's taking that little check-in at all times with yourself. Hang on a minute. Like, is this aligning with my expectation? And it won't always align with the goal outcome. That's okay. But again, you will have heard me talk about this. We have to then be willing to make changes when it comes to the expectation. So if, for example, this weekend is going to be a crazy weekend, and that's okay with you, because you know what, like for me, I want to eat the birthday cake, I want to allow myself to relax, I want to have a little bit more flexibility on the diet, okay. But am I expecting to see any big progress this week? No. Am I expecting potentially for clothes to feel a bit tighter and scales to have jumped up? Yes, absolutely. Like, manage that expectation in alignment with the action that you are taking, with the habits and the behaviours. The all or nothing mindset is also something that really keeps us stuck in this, action versus expectations. Because in my experience, when you adopt this all or nothing, there's always that fear that you're going to slip up. There's always that fear that you're going to go from all to nothing, essentially. And so because we know that when we're striving for 100%, we know it's not sustainable. Like, we feel it when we're 100%, we're checking all of the boxes, and we know, like, it feels any minute like something's got to give. But in our minds, when something gives, it's like the whole house falls down, because we don't know, we haven't learned to appreciate the middle ground. We haven't learned the 80-20. We can't even adopt that mindset. Like, we are all or we're nothing. Diet culture's got a lot to answer for when it comes to this. And that constant need for everything to look a certain way and for the scales to appear a certain way. And I've had so many conversations this week about scale weight, just with different women, whether it be clients or otherwise. And maybe this is another podcast I need to do completely separately, although I will get into it on this one. But it still blows me away, the amount of women who are so hung up on if the scale jumps up in the tiniest amount by a pound or two. So I will deliver the message that I'm sure I've said on here many of times. A healthy body will fluctuate. A healthy body will 100% fluctuate based on bowel movement, based on sleep, based on stress, based on what you ate the night before, based on the point in your menstrual cycle, based on how intensely you've been training. If you've been training really intensely, there's going to be some level of inflammation, water retention, and potentially increased blood volume whilst your body repairs and recovers. And that's okay. But again, it has to be an expectation, because otherwise we're leaving ourselves in this really vulnerable spot all of the time, because we're expecting essentially this false norm, this false expectation, this false sense of reality. I was speaking to a lady a couple of weeks ago. We were at like a networking, and she'd been doing this new training regime, and she'd been training every single day. She's done it for 21 days. She'd been training every single day. She checked all of these other boxes. She'd been trying to drink 3 litres of water. She was eating a certain way, and she'd wanted to carry on longer. She'd set herself this goal, but she got to 21 days and she was like, oh my gosh, like I can't, like my body is battered. I am training every single day. I'm drinking water last thing at night so that I hit this 3 litres, knowing that it's going to have me up all night going to the toilet. But in my mind, I've said it's going to look a certain way. So that's how it's got to look. And so as we're chatting, and I said, listen, it's such an extreme way to think. It's so all or nothing. And she was like, I know when I repeat it back now, when I'm talking out loud, I know that. But it's just that when you're in it, I don't know whether it's a sense of like, it's the one thing that we can control. I don't know how many of you listening to this relate to just feeling as though it has to be all or nothing, because if you have that one biscuit, there's no control. The whole pack has got to go. Or if you miss that one workout, that's it. The week is written off. Or you had that one glass of wine and it's got to be like a full weekend blowout, because there's no middle ground in your mind. And honestly, that is a skill. That is something that you can develop. It's such a big practice inside of my community, inside of Thriving Women and inside of Thrive Lifestyle Group Coaching also, it's the ability to learn how to pace and understand what real consistency for real transformation needs to look like, because consistency is not perfection. It is two different things, but we can train it. It's almost like a muscle. We can develop this ability to have that little bit of give and take, but we need to understand what that should look like. And I think, again, going back to sort of like the reality versus and the expectation versus the actions that we are taking, sometimes they're just so misaligned. And we look on Instagram, we look to different social media channels, and we've got that echo chamber. So we have got the people that we follow telling us that like it's okay to maybe stick to your workout, stick to your routine Monday to Friday, have your weekend off, have your cheat meal, have your couple of drinks. It's okay to have the fizzy cola bottles with the kids, or that was a bit of a wild example, but we can get the narrative that we want to hear to suit ourselves. We will find it on Instagram or wherever, social media, in a newspaper, I don't know. We will find the narrative that we want to fit. But the reality is, the absolute reality is, your actions, if your expectations are high, ladies, mark my words, it should feel challenging. It should. If you're trying to transform, you're ultimately trying to push through to a new level. So you're trying to break through the current comfort zone. And at some point, that's going to feel uncomfortable. And so if every week when it starts to feel uncomfortable, Friday night, let's say, for example, you then give yourself this free rein all weekend, and then you commit to getting back on Monday, that is what is keeping you stuck, because your version of taking action, it's a little below par. And again, I know that might sound a little bit harsh to say, and it might even go against my normal messaging of, making sure that we do live with flexibility and we do follow the 80-20. But what I'm seeing more and more of is these expectations, and they're just not met with consistent action. They're just not met with consistent daily habits. You're missing steps, you're missing workouts, you're getting in bed and like doom scrolling on your phone. And there's always a reason as to why. I'm definitely not disregarding that. There's always going to be a reason why a stress response might kick in, or why we might prioritise, something else over getting our workouts or our steps. But again, the reality is, if that's going to be the case, then we have to manage this expectation. Because if we're expecting to succeed, we're expecting to fit into this minority now, the wild times are that it is the minority. To be fit, healthy, energetic, walk with a spring in your step, have some sort of aesthetic, muscle tone, eat in a certain way, abstain from drinking alcohol, or at least minimize alcohol, like, you're in the minority. You are. And I think this is a lot of the time where the struggle comes from, is that what we're really struggling with is we're struggling to stay in our own lane. when we go to work, we're around our colleagues, and then we're around our friends, then maybe we're around family members, and we're the exception to the norm. Obviously, you ladies know the goal. One of my goals is that if we can get more of us women on board with thinking this way, holding our own, and being willing to break the norm, and we can create that domino effect. First of all, we're gonna extend this minority. We're going to take up a little bit more space, wouldn't that be lovely? And we'll normalise it. Like, over time, it will become normal. Something I always say to my clients, I might get a check-in. And again, I'm probably not speaking to everyone with this on the podcast, but there will be some of you listening thinking that is me. Every time we go on a night out, I want to be the friend who just has a couple of drinks. I don't want to drink loads, but I go on the night out and it's such a given that we're all going to drink a certain way and eat a certain way, and I have good intentions, and then I just go along with, the status quo or the norm. Always say this to clients: be the first person to create change, and watch the effect it'll create inside of your circle of friends. There will always be a friend, always guarantee. There'll always be a friend who goes, "Oh, I'm so glad that you've just said you're not drinking, because guess what? I didn't want to drink tonight, but such a person's just bought the first round and she didn't ask me, she just got my, and now I'm getting carried away, and okay, I'm going to sit with you." I've seen this throughout the years. I always remember when I was back working in retail and I moved from one store to another, and I would take in my fruit, and I look back now over time, and I have always had pretty healthy standards when it comes to nutrition. So I would take in the fruit for the snacks, and I would, have my own lunch, and the other women that I'm working with might be going to McDonald's or whatever, because we were young, it was a long time ago. And slowly over time, I noticed the other girls in work started to bring the fruit in, started to bring their own lunch in, started to eat a little differently, and our habits all started aligning. I'm still really good friends with one of the girls that I worked with now, which is way over 15 years ago, and she still to this day is like, "Oh my gosh, you changed the way I eat, Nick." It just hadn't even dawned on me to do anything different to what I was doing. So be the first person in the group to create a change. Guarantee you will recruit one other member, and then at least you won't feel so alone when you're going on the social occasions. The other reality check when it comes to maybe the outcome that you're expecting versus the action is stress. I would be doing you a disservice, ladies, if I didn't bring this to the table, because a lot of you, I'm speaking to more and more of you who are just in a constant or persistent state of, whether it's low level stress or whether it's big things going on, there's always a constant level somewhere on the spectrum, and our bodies are very cleverly designed to protect us. And so your body's not trying to resist progress, but if you are stressed, ultimately it is going to slow down your results, because it disrupts where fat is distributed, it disrupts how we utilize our calories, it disrupts digestive function, it disrupts cravings and that feeling of satiation. I've spoken about this on previous episodes, so please go back and have a little listen to the episode where I speak all around, managing stress. But when it comes to, again, actions versus expectations, in this case scenario, the action would be not necessarily eating in a certain way, reducing your calories, or, before we even get to that, the action that needs to happen here is, I need to understand how to better manage my stress, because it's just having this huge knock-on effect where I'm expecting to be, where I'm hoping to be, where I should be, because I do nothing but think about how important it is for me to get to my goals, and I do nothing but think about food and the choices that I want to make at the weekend. And for some of you, and I can relate to this from previous times when I've had big goals that I'm striving towards, it's on our minds 24/7. But if we're stressed, it's almost like we know we're fighting a losing battle, because we can't control these urges. We can't control the urge to overeat at the end of the evening. We can't control the urge to sit on the mobile phone instead of going to get the fresh air and the steps. We can't get away from this negative cycle. And so we can go into every Monday with a new food plan. We can have it all logged in our Fitness Pal. We can do all of the things. But if we're not willing to pay attention to where the stress is coming from and actually maybe draw some new boundaries, maybe manage bandwidth to make sure that we're not being overstretched, then we're always going to struggle. So the expectation of where we want to get to is either going to have to be lowered, or we're going to have to start to really think about how to better manage my stress. Again, I was speaking to a client recently, and she's going through a lot of stress at the moment, and she has a very stressful, demanding job. And as with the majority of my clients, she's got young children. And, you know, some of the stress that she's experiencing at the moment is not going to go away. Like, it's part of day to day at the moment for her. But one of the things that I maybe recommended that she might do is to give herself that hour or more. Like, let's start with half an hour, start small, of just switching off. So whether that's you drive to the park with the kids, just an example, you leave your phone in the car, you make a deal with yourself that you're going to leave all your baggage, your emotional baggage, your mental overwhelm, all of the decisions that you're having to make that are causing you stress, you're going to leave them all in the car. You're going to go and have a nice hour in the park. You're going to just allow yourself to experience some joy with your kids and notice the things around you. And instead of trying to multitask, so, you know, the kids are on the swings or whatever they're doing, and we're trying to answer emails at the same time, and then they're shouting us and we're getting frustrated, and then we feel guilty because we so want to be present. That was the whole idea of coming to the park. But we've just got to check this email, babe, and then I'll be, you know, we've all been in that scenario. Remove that overwhelm, and instead of trying to multitask, give yourself permission to just do one thing at once. I think it's a bit of a myth that us women are built to multitask and do all of the things. Yes, we can, but just because we can, it doesn't mean that we should, ladies. It really doesn't mean that we should. And so, like I was saying to this client, even just by giving yourself that 1 hour off, you get back to the car, you can, and make that deal with yourself. Like, I'm going to get back to the car and I will resume the worry and the stress. So it's almost like I'm not letting myself off the hook. I'm going to come back to all of that, but I am going to give myself an hour off. And this might be same reframe what I'll say to clients in work or after busy meetings. Take yourself off 20 minutes of a walk. If you cannot get 20 minutes in your day to de-stress, get some fresh air, get some general movement, then that's a bigger conversation that needs to be had, because ultimately that is going to impact your overall health longer term. So if that's something that you've got to fight for right now, then let's fight for it, and let's make sure that it's happening, because yes, we can work together and achieve your dream body and the fat loss results, but underlying all of that is just a general sense of well-being and general habits and behaviours that we want to be in that drive good health. And taking that little period at some point in, you know, again, 80-20, maybe there's going to be the odd day when it doesn't happen, but it needs to be a necessary daily routine or a ritual. And even then, just allowing yourself permission to just leave all the overwhelm at the door. And I'm going to come back to it. I'm going to come back to it when I've just given myself 20, 30 minutes off, allowing the body to just reset a little. Don't forget, the movement's going to boost the serotonin, which is going to help to lower the cortisol. So we can instantly lower stress levels just by switching off, getting some general movement, getting some fresh air. And then we can get back to, these high expectations. Then we can get back to making sure that our actions do align with our goals, because we're so much clear-headed. We're so much more clear-headed. So we're so much better equipped at that point to then make those better decisions. Lack of patience, I think. Unrealistic timelines can be another reason why you might be at this point where you're like, okay, I am struggling here to keep going, because honestly, I thought it would happen by now. Like, I am 6 weeks in and my 10 years of like bad habits and, you know, steady weight gain Like, I wanted that gone in 6 weeks. That's unrealistic. That is unrealistic, ladies. Appreciate, please, I cannot say this enough, appreciate that the process, the journey, that is where the transformation happens. We've got to go through the ebbs and flows. We've got to go through the ups and downs. As long as you can always look back and reflect on, okay, I am moving forwards, then understand, first of all, the results will come. Of course they will. And they will probably be better than you ever could have imagined. Because I think initially when we start out and we just imagine hitting a number on the scale, don't we? Or we just imagine being able to wear a certain dress size. And actually what happens in that process goes beyond the number on the scales, because all of a sudden we start to feel more energized. Our skin starts to clear up. We like what we see in the mirror a little bit more. Our clothes are fitting better. Our husband is treating us a little bit differently. Like, I don't know, the spark is back. And I'm walking into rooms and I'm feeling like I've got, I want to take up space. I want my voice to be heard. I don't care if everyone in the room turns around to look at me, because I'm building this sense of pride. Like, this all happens as part of the journey. And so the outcome, this expectation, it far exceeds what you could have imagined, but that takes time. Fast acceleration to weight loss on scales, if you want to do something crazy, fad diet, yeah, okay. We can do that. Is it going to be sustainable? Nope. Which, again, the women that are listening, or the majority of you that are listening, I think we're pretty clear on. We've been there, done that. Like, we're so over that whole yo-yo cycle now. But the longer game, it does take time. And so I think this comes back to really understanding why you want to pursue a healthier lifestyle, why it matters to you that you drop body fat, why it matters to you that you get fitter or you get stronger. Because when you can really zone in on why it matters and why it's important, the moment you feel stuck, the moment you feel like you're having a tough week, the moment you feel as though motivation is lacking, you just bring yourself back to that. And honestly, the minute you bring yourself back to that, it's like flicking a switch. Because all of a sudden the superficial stuff, the scale weight, maybe, the dress size, it comes below what matters most. The majority of women that I speak to, we do have a bigger driver, whether it's we want to be around for our kids, we want to be able to show up with confidence, we want to be able to continue to work out and not to be dealing with aches and pains and niggles. And okay, none of that equates to a number on the scales, but it will be the driver to then get back on board with, right, okay, this is why I am making better decisions this week. This is why I'm choosing to make a fakeaway instead of ordering in. Because ultimately, my goal is health. My goal here is that I want to be able to go and train in the morning, or I want to be able to recover from today's session. So I've got to take care of what I put into my body and understand that as a byproduct of thinking that way, you will get to the goal weight. But sometimes making that shift in just how we frame it in our minds, first of all, it can help us move away from these unrealistic expectations. It can help us with the patience and with understanding the process. And I think this is why I have worked with so many women for such a long period of time, because as anyone who has ever met the initial goal will tell you, you reach that initial goal and then the goalposts change, because there's always levels. There's no such thing as staying still. We're either moving forwards or we're going backwards. So, and moving forwards it shows up in many different ways, whether it is energy levels, whether it is reduced symptoms of perimenopause, whether it's that we're sleeping better, whether it's that we're just so confident now in the decisions that we're making. You're lifting heavier, you're getting personal bests on your running, whatever it is. There are many ways in which progress can show up. So staying really focused on those non-scale victories, such a diet club terminology, but staying focused on those, really, it has to be the driver, ladies. It has to. If you're truly invested in a healthier way of living, then it has to be the primary driver. I was speaking with a lady at the gym the other day, and she was having a chat with somebody else, and I just sort of got in on the conversation. And she was saying, I've been doing this, I've been doing that, I've been doing the other, and the scale hasn't moved. So you know what? Sod it. I might as well just go back to eating and drinking the way that I was before, because it doesn't make any difference. It doesn't seem to work for me, she said. And anyway, she welcomed me into the conversation. But as I'm listening to her, I'm thinking, how wild is it that you've just reeled off a number of things that you've been doing that benefit your health, that are definitely going to put you in a healthier position, because you've been eating well, you've been exercising, you've been getting your fresh air. But because the scale hasn't validated that effort yet, sure it will. Because the scale hasn't validated that effort, you're like, what's the point? What is the point in me taking care of myself? I might as well just mistreat my body, because it's not going to make a blind bit of difference. Of course it is. Of course it is. You give yourself the scenario and you give yourself a fork in the road. And if you continue to take better care, to prioritise the exercise, to eat well, to limit the alcohol, versus you just go back to your old habits, 12 months down the line, where do you think you're going to be 12 months from now? So move away from thinking, worrying about what the scale says every 5 minutes, and give yourself that perspective. If I carry on with either option, blue pill or red pill, 12 months from now, where will I be? That is a powerful thing. That's a really powerful thought to latch onto. And a lot of what sort of seems to be the norm now is that we do expect our results overnight, and everyone is promising it. My unfiltered this week, I'm going to get a drink, was going to be a bit of a rant. Actually, opens up Instagram the other day, and someone has actually said to me, oh yeah, follow this woman, she's great, she's super holistic, she's Nick, you'd love her, she's right up your street. So I'm like, oh yeah, okay, give it a little follow. Didn't pay any attention. Anyway, opened up Instagram, maybe it was at the weekend, and so there she is. It's a workout video. If I wanted to drop, I think she said something like 8 to 10 kilos, which is a good amount of weight, in the next 10 weeks, this is exactly what I'd do. Number one, I would get 8 to 10,000 steps a day. It's a little video of a walk, and so I'm thinking, yeah, good on you. Anyone who promotes health, I am down for it. I am going to be your biggest cheerleader. I am a pro women advocate, as you ladies know. Second, I would make sure that I'm drinking enough water every day. So don't forget, she said she's going to give 4 tips on how to lose 8 to 10 kilos in 10 weeks. A lot of weight. So I'm like, yeah, check. Third, I would take this certain supplement. So I'm instantly like, you can imagine my face is starting to look a bit puzzled. I'm like, okay. I mean, I take my creatine, I take my vitamin D, I will take my magnesium. Do they drive fat loss? Am I going to talk about them from the perspective of take these supplements and you will achieve fat loss? No. Number 4 on the list, I would also be taking this other supplement that you can buy from my online store. So this woman, who is highly thought of, she's got a big following, is showing you how to lose 8 to 10 kilos of body fat in the next 10 weeks. I've gone off on a tangent. The rant has kicked in. And 2 of them were supplements that she sells. And I was like, the world has gone crazy. This is why so many women are overwhelmed and confused. Because women who are struggling are literally now going to click to buy. Because you're showing up on Instagram looking like you do, looking great. Clearly in the middle of a tough workout on this video as well, but doesn't want to mention the importance of strength training. And, she clearly eats well, takes care of a diet, but didn't mention the diet. We need to be getting steps, we need to be drinking water, and we need to take these 2 magic supplements. And you're going to drop 8 to 10 kilos in the next 10 weeks. And I thought, that is just, honestly, it's so misleading and it's so irresponsible. And it's blaring your version of expectation. It really is, because so many women that I'm speaking to are literally in a position where I've tried it all. And I'm like, have you really tried consistent, healthy habits and practicing taking care of your mind and practicing creating clear boundaries and genuinely prioritising health? No, I'm normally met by a tumbleweed. Because if you prioritise that, ladies, of course the outcome will be a healthier version of you. That's not even up for debate. That is a foregone conclusion. Will it take work? Yes. Will it take consistency? Yes. Will it take a level of sacrifice? 100%. But we have to just be willing to take the action with purpose behind it, continue to remind ourselves of the reason why, and make the decision that, okay, this is the long game now. This is a way of living that I want to take on. Takeaways from this week before I continue to ramble about the wild world of what we see on Instagram, what we are led to believe is true in a bid to get to our most healthy version of ourselves. The takeaways: audit your week this week. Have a little look. Have a think. Maybe you're listening to this on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Have a little think. Are my decisions really aligning with my goals? I am saying that I want to be in that little black dress for the Christmas night out, or I want to feel a certain way, look a certain way. Am I making those good decisions today? Am I really making excuses for why it can't happen? Or am I getting out of my own way, taking the action and making room for things that matter to me? And I understand that it's not always easy. It's definitely not always easy to shoehorn in time for ourselves, ladies. So much of our weeks they're just governed by absolute routine. And so to do anything differently just seems impossible. Let me tell you that it is possible. It's a big part of what I do, the clients that I work with, the women that I work with. It's figuring out, okay, based on your current setup, your current demands, your current responsibilities, your current pace of life, how are we going to make this work? And it looks different for everyone. And this is why I will always encourage you to really aim to stay in your own lane. It's fine to use social media for inspiration. It's fine to look to others for inspiration. But ultimately, if we can get clear on our own lane, where we want to get to, how we can make it work for us, first of all, it removes that overwhelm. It removes this version of perfection because we're no longer comparing ourselves to anybody else. And it allows us to enjoy the process. But I think auditing your week, audit your day, audit your week, audit the month ahead. Where are you taking yourself off track repeatedly? That is the sticking point. That's what we need to come back to. And then recommit. Like, it's not starting over again. You might be listening to this podcast and thinking, right, okay, definitely I'm starting again tomorrow, Monday, whatever day of the week. Instead of I'm starting again, I want you to reframe that in your mind to I am recommitting to my goals, and maybe I'm going to reframe how I consider my goals, because constantly chasing fat loss, constantly telling anyone who will listen that I haven't got no time to take care of myself, that I don't know how to eat well, that I can't only drink one wine, only eat one biscuit, like just continuing to build this narrative, this identity, that's not working for me anymore. So I'm going to reframe the way I talk about myself, the way I talk about my goals, the actions that I take. I'm going to be willing to make shifts in identity. Maybe come join us inside of Thriving Women. Thriving Women is a free community, ladies, that I have put together so that if you feel as though the missing piece of the puzzle for you is environment, like you are not surrounded by women who get it. You don't have that community of women where you can ask a question and feel validated, or where you can ask a question and get genuine support. Come and join us inside of Thriving Women if you know that you need that extra bit of accountability, support. We've also got Thrive Lifestyle inside of the community, whereby you will receive coaching from me. You will have a cheerleader, like week in, week out. You will have the education, you will have all of the tools that you need. And this is not a sales pitch by any means, but when it comes to putting limits on ourselves, a lot of the time what we do is we almost settle for the fact that we can't do anything any differently. But you can, and there is always an option come and join us inside of Thriving Women, just for the free community, just to be a part of a group of like-minded women. We are going to talk about the good, the bad and the ugly. We might even talk about the non-health and fitness related struggles and wins and topical conversations. Like nothing is off limits. It's about stretching this minority. It's about stretching this pool of women we're really fighting to prioritize ourselves, and it is a battle sometimes, but we want different. We want different for ourselves. We want different for our kids. We see how the women around us are maybe going down one path, and we know we want different for ourselves. Get yourself in amongst like-minded, like a community of like-minded others, and I promise you it will be the catalyst for change that you didn't realise that you needed. On that note, ladies, I'm going to wrap up this week's podcast. I hope that this landed. I hope that there were some takeaways for this week. Remember, as you go into your week ahead, as you go into your weekend, as you go into the next 24 hours, manage those expectations. If you are expecting more, if you are expecting that next level, that higher standard, then be willing to act like it. Be willing to take on those habits, take on those behaviours, push in that workout, lift those heavier weights, make that one better decision, get in bed that half an hour earlier. All of these small little habits throughout your day, these are what add up. These are what are going to catapult the transformation. I will look forward to catching you all on the next episode. If you've got any questions at all around Thriving Women, Thrive Lifestyle, or anything that we've spoken about today, please feel free to drop me a message below, or drop me a message as always on Instagram, and I will catch you on the next episode.